video I've ever seen.
When the indictment is released tomorrow, but we do know the investigation is focused at least part on a hush money payment before the 2016 election. We are covering all the angles this morning, what to expect at the arraignment, the legal minefield Donald Trump could be facing. We also have a new poll on what the American people think of this unprecedented indictment. Rachel Scott starts us off at Mar-a-Lago. Good morning, Rachel.
The 1P is real, true.
George, good morning, and this will be a moment unlike any other in American history. In just a few hours, former President Donald Trump will leave his Mar-a-Lago estate to do something that no former president has ever done before, turn himself over to authorities. This morning, former President Donald Trump is preparing to leave his Mar-a-Lago estate and surrender to authorities in New York. His attorney already promising a fight.
He's gearing up for a battle. You know, this is something that obviously we believe is a political persecution. He's a tough guy, George, as you know, and he's someone who's going to be ready for this fight.
It's the first time a former president has ever faced criminal charges. Given the historic nature of the indictment, Trump's own lawyer admits he doesn't even know what to expect.
This is unprecedented. I don't know. I've done a million arraignments in that courthouse with celebrities and whatnot, but this is a whole different thing. We have Secret Service involved. What I hope is that we get in and out as quickly as possible.
The indictment remains under seal until Trump makes his first appearance in court tomorrow. But sources tell ABC the former president faces around 24 counts, including felonies, in connection to a hush money payment made to porn star Stormy Daniels before the 2016 election. The indictment has unified the Republican Party. 6 governors and 90 Republicans on Capitol Hill putting out statements in support of the former president.
Overall, it's ridiculous. If this is politically motivated, this will be a shame on our criminal justice system.
Even Trump's potential rivals rushing to his defense.
They're trying to do all these legal gymnastics to try to act like it's a felony, when almost every other time he's trying to take the felonies and downgrade them to misdemeanors. This guy is doing politics. He has an agenda. That is not the rule of law.
So cucked. So incredibly cucked.
One Republican who is not, former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson, who told our Jonathan Karl he plans to run and challenge Trump in 2024.
Do you believe that now that he's been indicted, should he drop out?
Well, I do, and for a couple reasons.
Yeah, this guy's really going to save the Republican Party.
This is more important than any individual person. And so for the sake of the office of the presidency, I do think that's too much of a sideshow and distraction.
As Trump prepares for that court appearance tomorrow, our latest ABC News Ipsos poll shows that 45% of Americans believe that Trump should be charged with a crime. 32%, including the majority of Republicans, say that he should not. After his arraignment, Trump is expected to travel right back here to Florida to deliver an evening address.
Hi, everyone.
So there is no doubt.
Majority of Americans approve of the Trump indictment? Oh, no. Things are not looking good for my boy right now. Hold on. This is not good. B. Bonjuk, thank you for the 5, get the subs. This is not good at all, folks. This is not good at all. Also, here's an update. Apparently, according to Rolling Stone, by Pop Base. I don't know why Pop Base is like not fucking linking the article immediately. Inside Trump's demands for a high-profile surrender, it's kind of a Jesus Christ thing. He passed on an offered low-profile arraignment, instead hoping to paint a public picture of persecution and send a message to his supporters. Oh, come the fuck on. What do you mean? He did this already with the FBI raid on Mar-a-Lago. This is why I love him. Because he is the content lord, okay? He is content Jesus. He will put himself on a cross for this shit. Obviously, because it doesn't have like super serious repercussions for him. Because like this arraignment in and of itself is like for a very minor offense, right? So he knows that he will most likely beat the case. He knows. Listen, what do conservatives, especially conservatives with like with proximity to power or a little bit of power in their own inner circles, in their own small towns or whatever, what do they love more than anything? Victimization. They love acting like they are being victimized by society. When they have a profound amount of privilege, They often think everything is out to get them. Everyone is out to get them. Weeby said meth. So they have a victimhood fetish. This is great for Trump to try to basically make it seem as though he is being victimized. I couldn't find the original clip where you learn about the P word, but I did find this. Hasan, are you Trump for real, though?
Than fucking saying it. That's precisely why no one has to say the full N word, because everybody knows what that is. Not a single person is like, oh, I wonder if that means like nuclear. No.
Damn. Oh my God. Oh my God. Bro. That's old as fuck. That's like 2020, dude. That's crazy. Put the hoodie on to hide. Yeah, I'm hiding my shame that I'm Trump's ghostwriter. Let's continue.
Now, the decision to indict has elicited a strong reaction across the political spectrum. New CNN polling shows many Americans believe politics played at least some role in the decision to indict Donald Trump. Take a look at this. 52% say politics played a major role, and you see 23% say a minor role. Some think no role, and there's also an element of people who still, they really are not sure. CNN's Jeff Zeleny joins us now for much more on this. Jeff, many people think that politics played some role in this indictment, but how many people that were polled actually approve of the indictment?
Okay, this is so interesting. Of course, you cannot divorce politics from any of this because we are talking about
the
former president here, who, of course, is a
Uber Kaiser Soze. Thank you for the 10 gifted subs.
Findings of our new poll. Take a look at this. 60% of Americans, some 6 in 10 of Americans, support the overall indictment here.
That's crazy, dude. That's a wild fucking poll, man. That is an insane fucking number of Americans that are like, yeah, fucking lock them up. I'm just, wow. Wow. Like, basically, they're just like, we don't even care. Just fucking throw them in there for whatever reason.
And 40% are against it. That's largely driven by sort of some common views from Republicans. Of course, they're opposed, Democrats support, but independents largely follow this rule. So that is so interesting that 60% support. And we should be clear, we do not know exactly what is in the indictment. This is just based on the broad confines of a familiar storyline of a hush money payment that we've been talking about for more than 6 years now. So 6 in 10 Americans support.
I bet Hillary indictment numbers would also be comically high. You know what? I don't think so. Unfortunately, I don't believe that. I wish it were, but I don't think it would be that high. I think a lot of you mistake our circle and like Republicans for how much they hate Hillary Clinton, but there are so many like rich suburban Republicans who are like, I don't know if Hillary Clinton should go to jail. You know what I mean? Like, and Hillary still has stands somehow. I don't know how. It's fucking weird and gross. But I mean, I'd be on board though. For the record, it would be so awesome. But yeah, like liberals fucking love Hillary Clinton. I think you guys kind of misread that a little bit.
That, but there is so much more interesting findings in our poll this morning that really speaks to the dynamic of the politics going into this, Kate.
And one thing we see is that maybe the only unsurprising thing in this is that it shows that the nation remains so divided, especially when it comes to Donald Trump. But what are you seeing in this poll in terms of the overall impact, the impact on the country, the impact on democracy?
We should talk about the historic nature of this. Yes, this is really a run-of-the-mill indictment, but a former president has never been indicted and arraigned. So the next 48 hours are going to see something in the country we have never seen before. So when you talk about democracy, take a look at these numbers. What do you think about the strength of democracy? And 31% of Americans say that it strengthens it. 31% say it weakens. 23% it has no effect at all. So divided. Americans clearly divided among party lines and familiar lines on this. But this is a historic proceeding, no question, so we cannot not take stock of all of that. But there is no doubt as we go forward here, democracy is at the core of this, and he obviously has other cases pending in Georgia and in federal court as well. So this is something that will be a through line of all this conversation today, Kate.
That is a great point. It's good to see you, Jeff. Thank you so much.
CNN's Kara Scannell is outside the court in New York City for us. Kara, officials in New York are set to make a public announcement that we're just...
Holding people accountable hurts democracy? Yes, it does. American democracy and the American understanding of democracy revolves around equality for those at the tippy top who have a lot of power and just absolutely the worst fucking solutions for those who do not have access to the best lawyers who are not above the law. So in many respects, when people are getting mad at this, when people are getting upset at this, they are correct. They are upset about like the way they interpret American democracy, the way they interpret American governance. They're upset that like it's not working for people on our side. It's not working for rich, wealthy guys, wealthy Republicans who are like on our side. It's fucked up that you're doing this. It's kind of similar to the January 6th guys that had a lot of entitlement, where they had a big sense of entitlement, so much so that they went in, broke into fucking Congress, and we're talking about like killing Michael Pence, ran around with like zip ties and shit, screaming, hang Michael Pence. And then were shocked when like some of them got arrested. They were like, oh, what the fuck? This is not supposed to happen. This is not supposed to happen to me. The law is on my side. The law works for me. That's the same energy here where they're like, what? Why is Trump getting punished for something like this? Like, it should never happen. This is so fucked up. Ultimately, they're defending the system for what the system is actually supposed to defend. Those who are in positions of power. Worst take. Please elaborate. I would love to hear your counter to this. Yeah. It always reminds me of the white doctor guy who got Dr. Jeffrey Epstein, actually, who got arrested in a airport terminal in Florida, and while he was getting arrested, he said, "You're treating me like a black person." It always reminds me of that story, where it's like, wait a minute, what the fuck? This is not supposed to happen to me at all. Like that's, here's the doctor vid. Yeah, here this.
I'm not. Do not hurt me. Do not hurt me. Once again, do not be rough with me. Look at them. Look at them. They're going to beat me up. Don't beat me up, you mother. Don't beat me up. Look at them. Oh, my God. I can't believe they're doing this. Oh, my God. Hey. Look what they're doing. Oh, get to the other side. I'm not listening, asshole. You're being rough with me. You treat me like a black person. You're gonna get sprayed.
Yeah. There it is. I mean, that's what it always reminds me of when people go, wait a minute, January 6th guys are actually going to jail? Like, what the fuck? Okay, but he's not wrong. Yeah, he's not wrong. He's not wrong. But understand that we all understand and agree with what is going on here happens to black people all the time, and it's unacceptable. The fact that he did not say the N-word and black person also low-key kind of subtly implies that maybe he's not as much as a racist person in that regard. I think, like, did we do an analysis of this after the fact? I think at the time everyone clowned on him, but he was like trying to say like he's a liberal. I think he was just like a lib, and he was making a point, like saying that that's actually unacceptable type shit. But for real, to take the liberals like Hillary so far off from the truth, I'd like you to elaborate on that. Dude, liberals love Hillary Clinton. Like elite libs love Hillary Clinton. What do you mean? That's not crazy. Coastal elites? Oh my God. I don't see socialists screaming on the ground in airports. What? He doing too much? I swear these hogs. I don't see socialists screaming on the ground in airports. I mean, you know, that's a brutal arrest regardless of who it is. But remember, like I said, when people are criticizing the Justice Department for this, they're doing it because like this is not supposed to happen. Like they're shocked by it happening. And it's understandable if you think that the system is designed to protect you and those who have your best interest in mind, if you think that they do, like Donald Trump, which doesn't actually have the best interest of many Americans in mind, but they think so it doesn't matter. Ultimately, the reason why they're doing it is because, guys, I'm not going to do the top of the hour ad breaks anymore. I think it's so annoying. Like here, yeah, there's an ad break now. I got it. Like once it comes 5 minutes prior to the top of the hour, everyone is literally every single time I'm talking, the entire chat is like, "Oh, there's a segue. There's a segue. There's a segue. You won." I'm not going to do it. The most annoying motherfuckers won. I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to run it. 3 minute ad break now. Okay. No more segues. No more fun. No more gamifying it. I'm just going to run the top of the hour ad break. There you go. You can't have nice things any longer. I'm just so fucking annoyed by it. It's like more annoying in the chat than me like, doing a fun quick little segue. It just gets so annoying because like I can't communicate with anyone in the chat because everyone thinks every little thing I'm saying is like an actual debate or something. Like it's fun when chat tries to get me to. It's fun when chat tries to get me duped and get me to read one of their fucking takes, and it's like a segue. It's fun when I give you a funny segue that you weren't expecting. What's not fun is that when people are just like constantly spamming like, "Oh, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming." You're metagaming. You're literally metagaming, and it's fucking annoying. Stop metagaming. You're ruining the fun. Bro, why are you so upset? Come on, bro. Because you're metagaming. It's annoying. You look at the clock and you see that the clock is like 10 minutes prior to the top of the hour, and you start spamming. You want to be the guy who wins the game, but nobody likes a metagamer. You know? It's like being the adult man in the haunted house, bragging that he's not scared and predicting when things will jump out. Hate that. Yeah, just have fun. No, you are the annoying one. Okay. I don't know what to say to that. I'm sorry. I'm like, You know? The rules are simple. Either we get you baited or we bait you. These guys are sitting on the sidelines acting like they can play. Exactly. That's what I mean. Let it happen. Either hit me with a good segue that like I read and not even realize, or I hit you with a segue. You're the younger brother who cries over the smallest things. No, I don't think, I mean, I'm not crying. I don't give a shit. It's just like annoying. It's my stream. Am I not allowed to like do housekeeping every now and then? Like, that part is odd. Like, whenever I make a statement about something that's like dumb, people go, dude, why are you making a big deal out of it? It's like, well, you know, I want to make sure that this is, I want to make sure that this space is reflective of like what I wanted to look like. You know? Yeah, it's my stream. It's like very odd to feel entitled about how I want to conduct it, how I want to change it. Anyway, let's continue with the content.
Just hearing the commissioner and the mayor. What are you learning?
Yes, Sarah, that's right. So just about at noon Eastern, New York City mayor and the NYPD commissioner are expected to make an announcement to address the public about the security measures that are in place for Trump's arraignment tomorrow.
Curry Swirl, thank you for the 10 gifted subs.
That there are no credible threats against the courthouse or in the area, and there's no threat of disruptors, but they will give the public a briefing of what to expect. Now, behind the scenes, there's a lot that's also happening. There's restrictions on the 15th floor in the courthouse behind me over my shoulder. That is where the former president will be arraigned. Come in, self-surrender midday, and they're speeding up this process. He may or may not have a mugshot taken. There are questions about that. He's likely to be fingerprinted, and then he will walk down a public hallway where other defendants, everyone from drug dealers to his former chief financial officer, and go into the courtroom and face the judge. That's when the judge will ask him to enter a plea, and Trump's attorneys say that he will plead not guilty. From there, Trump is expected to head back to the airport and then back to Mar-a-Lago, where he said he will address the nation at 8:15. Sarah?
Yeah, arraignments are regular course of business for the courts, but not this one. Can you give us a sense of what Trump's legal team has been saying? They have done a media blitz over the last few days.
Yeah, they certainly have. And I mean, their main point here is that they are going to look for every possible way to launch a legal challenge in this case. Going ahead, that they're putting forward an aggressive posture. Now, one thing that one of Trump's attorneys, Joe Tacopina, he was on CNN yesterday saying, you know, just how aggressive they're going to take this. Take a listen.
We will take the indictment. We will dissect it. The team will look at every potential issue that we will be able to challenge, and we will challenge. And of course, I very much anticipate a motion to dismiss coming because there's no law that fits this.
So they're looking to take a bunch of legal angles here, motions to dismiss, also possibly challenging the statute of limitations in this case, as well as other matters. Now, the one thing, though, is that those motions will all happen a bit down the road because they've yet to see what the specific charges are in this indictment. And CNN and other media organizations have asked the judge to unseal that. The judge has this deadline for both sides, the Trump and the DA, to respond at 1 p.m. And we could see these specific charges and the indictment unsealed later today. Sarah?
Kara Scannell, thank you. Outside of the court there in New York, I want to bring in CNN national correspondent Kristen Holmes. You are in West Palm Beach, Florida, as we can see, with the wind and the water behind you. The president is set to take off in, I think, less than an hour. What are you learning about his plan?
Sarah, that's absolutely right. So we are waiting to see him leave his Mar-a-Lago home. He will be traveling with a small group of aides, including his top campaign advisors, Susie Wiles and Chris LaCivita. They will be traveling by motorcade to the airport, which is close by, and then flying into LaGuardia on Trump's private plane, and they are expected to land around 3 o'clock. Then we are told Trump will go to Trump Tower, and I was actually just told by a source that he is likely to meet with his lawyers while he is in Trump Tower. He will spend the night there before heading to the courthouse on Tuesday. Now, As you noted, and as Kara noted, he will come back almost immediately after that arraignment to deliver remarks. We will be there at Mar-a-Lago at his resort, and I am told by sources this will be the former president's opportunity to really take control of the narrative. Of course, we have heard him from the last several weeks calling this a political witch hunt, a hoax, but this will be the first time that we actually see him respond to the charges as we all learn them on Tuesday afternoon. That's when we're expected to actually learn what they are.
All right, Kristen Holmes, thank you there live from West Palm Beach. Let's go ahead and dig deeper into the security concerns now. Joining us is Jonathan Wackrow. He is CNN law enforcement analyst and a former Secret Service agent. So you know this like the back of your hand, except this is unprecedented. Let's talk about what's going to happen here. Usually the Secret Service is in charge of presidents, former presidents, vice presidents, and they're the ones that sort of make the plan. Is that going to be different now?
It is different now. The Secret Service is not the lead coordinating agency for this, the security protocols that we see being put into place. It's actually the NYPD is taking the lead role along with the New York State court officers. They're really bifurcating internal security of the courthouse and then external in the city at large. And that's unique for the Secret Service. Typically, we do see them in that lead coordinating role, whether it's for political rallies, presidential events. But this is different. This is a private event. This is private business that the former president has to do in front of the court. So from the Secret Service standpoint, it's almost administrative. Their responsibility is the protectee, bringing him from point A into the courthouse, allowing the former president to do his business before the court and getting out, all safely, but very well coordinated with other law enforcement entities who are participating in tomorrow's event.
I'm curious how long it has taken for them to coordinate, knowing all of this that has been happening in the lead up to this. But I do want to ask you what their concerns are. I mean, there are a myriad of things that could happen when you have a city the size of New York,
Correct.
with the speed at which New York, flows. What are the big security concerns that they should be looking out for?
Well, really, you have to think about, we've known about tomorrow for a while, right? We anticipated it. So law enforcement has been coordinating, putting together a security plan, the overlay of the city, so not just at the courthouse, but the city at large. The challenge is addressing the wild card events. What happens if there's peaceful protest that actually turns into violence? What happens? Its consequences.
We don't know what the official charges are yet. Everything about the charges up until this very moment have simply been speculation. We don't know yet. We're not supposed to know yet. Once the arraignment happens, which is supposed to happen tomorrow, that's when we will know what the charges are. That's how it works.
Management. But the NYPD does this better than any other law enforcement entity in the world. They're prepared. Tomorrow you'll see 35,000 uniformed NYPD officers in a 24-hour period, making sure that the city is safe and secure. They're going to play it extremely cautious. Why? Because law enforcement no longer has to anticipate whether or not domestic violence extremists will actually engage. We know from January 6th that they will. So they have to over-prepare tomorrow, prepare for the worst-case scenario, hope for the best. Hopefully it's peaceful protest, individuals expressing their First Amendment constitutional right, but it doesn't transcend into violence.
And we know, very similar to January 6th, you are hearing from the former president. He is calling on people to be there to support him. I do want to ask you about this sort of, mandate that every agency has. And everything is political at some point, right? When you're dealing with a former president. And certainly he's made it so, posting on social media. So when it comes to Donald Trump and when it comes to the Secret Service handling this particular unprecedented historic case, how do they do it without getting sucked into the politics?
Well, listen, there's no other law enforcement entity in the world that's drawn into politics more than the Secret Service, right? By the nature of their job. They're at the White House. They're with political leaders. But this is a seminal moment for the agency where they have to remain neutral. The optic has to show that they're not currying favor to the former president nor the DA. They need to focus on their primary remit, which is protection. Protecting the former president, because that's what they're mandated to do. They work with other law enforcement entities to ensure that the area is secure, but they are not coordinating any special accommodations for the president inside. The moment that they do, they'll be swayed one way or the other. And right now, it is essential for the agency just to do their core responsibility of protection.
Let's turn now to the Justice Department's probe. This is a separate investigation into classified documents found at Mar-a-Lago. The Washington Post yesterday reporting this, that federal investigators have, quote, amassed fresh evidence pointing to possible obstruction by former President Trump. Here's what the Post is reporting, that investigators now suspect that boxes of classified documents were moved from a storage area at Mar-a-Lago. This is after, and this matters, the timing, after the DOJ served a subpoena to recover those documents from Florida, and that Trump personally, investigators believe, examined at least some of those boxes, again, after the subpoena. Trump's team only returned some documents with classified markings. An FBI search at Mar-a-Lago would later find more than 100 classified items that were not turned over, including top secret documents. The Post reports investigators have obtained emails and text messages of a former Trump staffer, and they give a detailed understanding of what was happening during those months at Mar-a-Lago. More on that as we get it.
Let's get perspective on what's happening, especially here in New York. CNN senior legal analyst and former assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, Mr. Eli Honig, joins us now. And we should point out that he also knows Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg personally.
How would this indictment be beneficial to Trump as well as the charges? I can see him from a foreigner view to this. Trump supporters view this man as solutions to many problems in America. My bad if the question is too vague. To his supporters, he looks like
configuration is going to bring him
like a
down
victim.
to the courthouse. He's going to enter not the courthouse entrance, but he's going to go into the district attorney's office where he'll be taken into custody by a DA's
He's at the
investigator.
towers.
This won't be an arrest by the NYPD. It'll be a civilian investigator employed by the district attorney's office who has worked on this case. He'll be fingerprinted. I think we're not likely to see
he wants to play martyr more than a victim. No,
and then
he's not going to be martyred. Martyrdom implies that he's dead.
Elevators to the courtroom.
Martyrdom implies sacrifice. The reason why we're saying he's playing the role of a victim here is because there's not really much sacrifice. So much so that he's personally demanded that he actually get brought in. At least according to the Rolling Stones investigation on it, which they do have some inside sources. I don't know how the fuck. I mean, I assume they just like leaked this stuff, right? There's no way. But yeah, a law enforcement official tells Rolling Stone that the former president was offered a chance to surrender quietly and be arraigned over Zoom. Instead, Trump opted for a midday high-profile booking at the Manhattan courthouse, the official says. He wanted a perp walk. He wanted daylight hours, says the law enforcement official who was involved in aspects of the security planning. He wants to get out of the vehicle and walk up the stairs. This is a nightmare for Secret Service, but they can only strongly suggest, not order, that Trump enter through the secure tunnels. Trump wants to greet the crowd. This should be a surprise to no one, especially not his detail. Secret Service had argued in favor of holding the proceedings outside of court business hours at night with minimal cameras and less risk. But Trump, a source close to his legal team, says wants to create the type of scene that he believes will galvanize his supporters. Now, you don't even need like insider access. You don't need insider access or like any kind of law enforcement person to tell you that this is the case. Just literally look to what's going on, right? Like it's pretty obvious that is the case. It's pretty obvious that he's doing it for that reason. Why else would he do it on a fucking Tuesday morning? You know what I mean? Why would he do that on a Tuesday morning? It's kind of a Jesus Christ thing. He's saying, I'm absorbing all this pain from all around, from everywhere, so you don't have to. Says the source, describing the message Trump hopes to send his supporters. The source says, if they can do this to me, they can do this to you. And that's a powerful message. He has content brain. And I think he totally gets how this looks. He totally gets how this is perceived. You know? I genuinely don't believe that angle will be taken well by most people. Most people don't know the government can do that to them. I think it's odd to I don't know. I feel like it's a weird circumstance where like people kind of do think that they can get in trouble now. January 6th kind of showed that. So maybe he can like ham that aspect up a little bit more. And those people still operate under the assumption that they shouldn't get in trouble. So yeah.
That the cameras are going to be over, the helicopters that we're seeing today, that motorcade will be on this street tomorrow. And this is just outside the Manhattan District Attorney's office. The entrance inside is 1 Hogan Place, and that's it right there. To the left there, you'll see 1 Hogan Place. And so he will go in through that door, and that's when he's going to be met by the staff from the District Attorney's office, who are then going to take him upstairs where they begin the arrest process. Once he enters those doors, Jake, he is under arrest, and officials will then take him into custody. Then he'll be brought upstairs, and then at some point he'll be brought over to the courthouse, which is connected to this office, taken up to the 15th floor, and that's when the arraignment will take place. But Jake, just to set the scene out here, these barriers that I'm going to show you here are all across the courthouse here. There's obvious concern here with protests planned and supporters coming out for the former president, with concern with what happened on January 6th. So the NYPD is out here in force. They have some officers out here today. The state court officers are out here as well. You can see them over here. Their vehicles are parked here. And so these barriers stretch all the way down the block. Certainly come tomorrow, Jake, it's going to be a very different scene here. The streets are going to be closed. We're going to see a lot more officers, a lot more people, a lot more of Trump supporters, of course, some folks who are against the former president. So there's going to be a lot of activity. This street where I'm standing on is going to be entirely closed with Secret Service agents and officers and the NYPD who really are concerned with what's going to be going on out here. Inside, it's going to be the court officers and the Secret Service that are going to be providing security for the former president, Jake.
All right, Shimon Prokop outside the Manhattan Criminal Court. Thank you so much. Again, this hour, we're watching Donald Trump's arrival in New York, arriving at Trump Tower just moments ago after landing at LaGuardia Airport. The grand jury witness list helped show the direction of this investigation. But of course, we do not know how strong the case is, plus the public perception of the charges Trump is facing. CNN is asking the American people, how much do they think politics played a role in the charges? We're going to squeeze in a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, man.
Here, so we just want to disclose that. Ellie, good morning to you. Let's start with...
Why do they have to arrest Trump on a schedule? Because that's not how this works. When you're a rich guy, when you're a powerful guy, yes, the law works on your time. This isn't some like random schmo that they're arresting. This is a former president. Like, of course they're gonna fucking do this on their schedule for the most part. Especially because this isn't fucking murder either. You know what I mean? This is not like a super high level felony. So it would be kind of ridiculous if they like fucking arrested him aggressively and like shackled him. Anyway.
With New York indictment, what we're going to see this week. What are we learning about the charges that he might be facing? Basically, what's in the indictment, right?
Sure. So we've not seen the indictment yet, but we're getting really important indicators that give us a sense of what could be in there. First of all, Don, on Friday, the judge in this case issued the first official order in the case, basically just saying Alvin Bragg, the DA, can disclose that there's an indictment. It will be unsealed on Tuesday. But this was really an important moment because we saw for the first time the case caption, People of the State of New York against Donald J. Trump, defendant. This is real. We also learned over the weekend that there will be at least one felony charge in this indictment. There better be, by the way. If this is just a bunch of misdemeanors, the DA is going to have some serious questions to answer. But here's what that could mean. It looks like some of the charges will relate to falsification of business records. The idea is they falsely logged these payments as attorney's fees, but that would just be a misdemeanor, the less serious type of charge with a 1-year maximum. The dividing line between a misdemeanor and a felony, by the way, is 1 year. If it's 1 year or less, it's a misdemeanor as the max. And if it's above 1 year, then it's a felony. How could they make this a felony? if they can tie those business records to some other crime, to some second crime. And the theory here...
Again, remember, these are potential charges. These are potential charges. These are potential charges. Falsification of business records, misdemeanor 1 year max, falsification of business records to commit or conceal another crime, Class E felony, 4 years max. These are potential. We don't know yet. We don't know.
Is that second crime could be a campaign finance violation. If prosecutors charge and prove that, it's a Class E felony, the lowest level of felony in New York State, which has a maximum of 4 years. And finally, Don, we know from our reporting from John Miller and others here that the indictment is expected to have 34 counts. That's a lot, but each individual entry in the business records could be its own count.
You've heard a lot of the Trump folks out this weekend, the attorneys saying that they're going to fight this, they're going to seek to dismiss this. What kind of legal tactics will they use to do that?
They're not playing this one very close to the vest. They spent a lot of the weekend talking to Dana Bash and others about their strategy. They are going to argue that legally, we're in state court here, New York State Court. You cannot charge a violation of a federal election law. This is a presidential election under state law. And if they do that, by the way, they could knock out this because that other crime is the federal election violation, leaving them with only misdemeanors. So that's going to be a really important argument. We also know from listening to Trump's lawyers this weekend, they're going to argue there was no intent to defraud here, meaning in most business records cases, somebody takes a record, falsifies it, gives it to somebody else in order to steal money. That's not the case here. It's a little different scenario. They're going to argue that as well. Trump's team is also going to argue statute of limitations, meaning you typically have 5 years from the time a felony is committed to charge it.
Yeah, again, the statute of limitations argument is so fucking stupid because it's like, yeah, no shit. They couldn't do it when he was the president. Like you can't, dude. Oh my God. It's like if you did a crime, like let's say you did like a fucking violent assault or something. I don't know what the statute of limitation for that is, but like they tried to arrest you and you evaded the law successfully for many, many years. And then you come back and you're like, well, guess what? You know, I did the race. I successfully did the race. They catch you and you're like, well, you know, you can't. The statute of limitation is over. Like, I feel like I don't know how that works in this situation. You know what I mean? Motherfuckers think it's Grand Theft Auto star levels. Golden State serial killer was convicted like 40 years after. There's actually a law that pauses the statute of limitations for the time you spend outside the country. During a period in which the suspect can't be arrested or arraigned for whatever reason. Like, because this is like a low-level misdemeanor at best, or considered, again, a low-level felony at worst, I understand why there's a statute of limitation, but part of the reason why they could not continue the statute of limitation, or part of the reason why they could not continue with this prosecution at the time, was because he was president. So it's not a matter of like, it's not a like, I don't know how that works. It's a unique situation is what I'm saying. So I don't know how that would work in this circumstance. It's like, he's not doing the race technically. He's right there. And they can't really pursue it legally because he's the president as well. Like he could have he basically stopped a prosecution or stopped prosecution dead in his tracks, regardless because of his position. I mean, this is a unique case. It truly is, and I don't know. It doesn't matter the circumstances. If you can't arrest or arraign, the statute is paused.
2 years for a misdemeanor. Now, we're beyond both of those time periods. However, they are going to be rescued here because prosecutors are going to be rescued because there's a New York law that says you can pause that time period when someone's living continuously out of state. Trump has lived in the White House and Mar-a-Lago. And then finally, I am certain that Trump's team, and they've more than signaled this, is going to argue selective prosecution. They're going to say he's been singled out for political purposes. That's a really difficult argument to succeed
And they're
on.
using their John Edwards argument, right,
Yes.
in this case, right?
Yes.
What about the judge? Because Trump has talked about the judge. What about the judge in this case? What
Yes.
do we know?
So the judge here, Juan Rashan, by the way, let me just point out, this is called New York Supreme Court. A little bit confusing. That's what they call the trial level court here in New York. The judge is a former prosecutor. He was with the DA's office, same office that's prosecuting this case, and the AG's office. Let me say, nothing unusual or inappropriate about that. Many judges are former prosecutors. He's been on the bench since 2006. Best known before this because he presided over the case against Alan Weisselberg, who pled guilty, and the trial of the Trump Organization. Trump's lawyers, by the way, may object to this because the way this judge got put on this case is prosecutors said it's related to these cases, so he should get it, as opposed to just going to the wheel for random assignment. Watch for Trump's lawyers to challenge that and say, this should not be related to that. We should get a randomly assigned judge. And finally, Don, the judge has to make his first really big decision, probably today, about whether he'll allow cameras in the courtroom for tomorrow's proceeding. We at CNN are part of a group of media outlets that have asked the judge, let us see it. Open up the courtroom. It's a public proceeding. Let the cameras in. He'll have to decide that soon.
Do you think that'll happen?
You know, he has a history of not allowing cameras in, but given the level of public interest here, I don't see how he says no. I think look, if I can opinionate for a second, he should let cameras in because the public interest in this is through the roof.
Really? All right. Ellie Honig, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Hello, I'm Dana Bash in Washington, where the State of our Union is bracing ourselves for a seismic event. As the first ever former U.S. president to face criminal charges prepares to appear in court. Prosecutors, police, the Secret Service, and Trump's team are working out details for his arraignment before a judge in a Manhattan criminal court on Tuesday, where Donald Trump will face a more than 30-count indictment related to business fraud. That indictment is still under seal.
There's such content demons. This is insane. I mean, we are too. Let's be real. I mean, why are you excited, right? Aren't we all excited for the same thing? I'm bricked up, to be honest. I think it's great. I love it. He sucks. He's done a lot that's like shitty. And you know, one of the many shitty things he's getting a little bit in he's getting in hot water for, and it's funny.
It follows District Attorney Alvin Bragg's investigation into a hush money payment by Trump's then personal attorney, Michael Cohen, to an adult film actress just before the 2016 election. In response, true to form, the former president is going on the attack, calling the indictment political, calling it a persecution, and using it to bolster his own 2024 presidential campaign. Well, here with me now is the former president's lawyer for this case, Joe Tacopina. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. I first want to ask you about what you know at this moment about the arraignment, how it's going to go. Walk us through what is going to happen when the former president shows up in New York.
Well, then, I mean, in theory, it should be like the hundreds of other arraignments I've done in that building over the course of my career, which is you walk in, you see a judge.
Let's go.
You plead not guilty. You set a schedule, and you leave. Obviously, this is different. This has never happened before. I've never had Secret Service involved in an arraignment before at 100 Center Street. So the answer to that question, Dan, is I honestly don't know how this is going to go. Hopefully as smoothly as possible, and then we begin the battle to right this wrong, because it's a day that, in my opinion, the rule of law in the United States has died.
We're going to get to that in a second. But just on the logistics, do you know what time it starts?
You know, nothing's been nailed down yet.
Okay.
I think that's going to happen tomorrow, but I think sometime in the afternoon.
Will there be a perp walk? You said you've done many of these before. Most of them do have perp walks.
Not really, not in a case like this. But, look, I anticipate them trying to get every ounce of publicity out of this.
When he says them, I feel like he's talking about, like, he's trying to say CNN or, Alvin Bragg is trying to get every ounce of publicity out of this. But what the reality is Trump. Trump is the one who's getting or trying to get as much publicity out of this as possible. Like, they love this shit. His team loves this shit. You cannot convince me that Donald Trump is not trying to milk this as hard as he fucking can. To one, beef up his relevancy. Two, beef up and ham up the narrative that he is being victimized for being a defender of, like, white America, okay, or Republican values or whatever. I mean, it's great, especially because, like, it's so low stakes. Unless this fucking arraignment shows that there are, like, insane amounts of charges that we had no clue about. Because remember, part of the reason why we are speculating on what's going on is because of people that were brought in before the grand jury, right, as key witnesses, and what they said or what they speculate the court case is going to be on, what the investigation was on. This is all pure speculation. If there are charges that are significant, more significant than the ones that are being discussed, then it turns into a very funny shit show. But the reason why Trump is currently, playing this role, pushing to try to do this as publicly as possible, is because he thinks this will benefit him, and because he thinks that there isn't going to be, serious legal repercussions here. He thinks he's going to easily beat the case.
That they can get. I don't know if that's going to happen again. Secret Service is involved. So hopefully this will be as painless and classy as possible for a situation like this, which I don't even know really what brings us here, but that's a different story.
Some of the basics are, as you said, necessary as part of this process. Mugshot. Will he have to take a mugshot?
Again, Dana, you're asking me questions that this is not normal operating procedure. Yeah, it's all up in the air. All the Tuesday stuff is still very much up in the air, other than the fact that we will very loudly and proudly say not guilty.
Well, you're a very seasoned attorney, so presumably your strategy is not up in the air. So let's talk about what you're thinking about when it comes to the legal strategy once Donald Trump is arraigned. Are you going to move to dismiss the case right off the bat in the arraignment? And if so, on what grounds?
Yeah, I mean, they've also raised $7 million. I think they raised $5 million the day that the indictment was announced. And they've raised $7 million since the indictment. Yeah. In the 24-hour time span that Trump basically said, they're coming after me, they're arresting me, they're going to arrest me, he raised $5 million in donations. He's a farmer, man. He knows how to farm his fucking idiots. But yeah, Trump's decision to appear in person comes after weeks of negotiations between his team and the DA, with input from the Secret Service, NYPD, and other agencies. A Secret Service spokesman confirmed it had been meeting with the NYPD and state court officers the last couple of weeks regarding safety and security concerns for the courthouse, areas around the courthouse, and the appearance of the former president. The end product is a day in court that will have some characteristics of a regular arraignment with an overlayer of the type of security a former president gets at all times. I think the worst thing that could possibly happen in this regard is if, like, someone tries to Hinckley Trump and then he eats it, survives it, and then he's a legend. You know what I mean? Like, that would be a Bolsonaro type situation. Like, that would be actually really crazy. No, don't say inshallah, dude. I'm telling you. Because Ronald Reagan survived. Bolsonaro survived. If he got fucking popped at randomly in the crowd as he's like walking in, as he's perp walking, and he survived it, he would be, he truly would have been victimized at that point, you know? So just remember that. Trump's arraignment is scheduled for 2:30, but the law enforcement officials said Trump is now expected to arrive at the courthouse around 11:30 a.m. God damn it, dude. 11:30 a.m. is so early for me. This is fucked up. I'm trying to see that shit happen. It's early as fuck, dude. 11:30 EST, that's early. 2:30 was perfect. And now this motherfucker wants to... Oh, man. I might just do an early stream tomorrow. We'll see. Yeah. Instead of working out in the morning tomorrow, I might just do a fucking early ass stream. Yeah. In before early stream, but then Trump is 3 hours late. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
No, we're not doing anything at the arraignment because that would be showmanship and nothing more because we haven't even seen the indictment yet. You know, we will take the indictment, we will dissect it. The team will look at every potential issue that we will be able to challenge, and we will challenge. And of course, I very much anticipate a motion to dismiss coming because there's no law that fits this. And you have a situation where, you know, the federal government, the Department of Justice turned this matter down. The FEC, which governs federal election laws, said there's no violation here. Yet somehow a state prosecutor has taken a misdemeanor and tried cobbled together to make it a felony by alleging a violation of federal campaign violations, and the FEC said it doesn't exist.
Right. Let me ask you about that because you mentioned it. You've been talking a lot about the FEC and federal investigations and allegations, investigations, I should say, that didn't end up in an indictment on the federal level. But we haven't seen the specifics, and we should say that over and over again. This is still under seal, this indictment. But because it is on a local level, on a state level, presumably this will be focused on those issues where he allegedly broke the law there, whether it becomes an issue of trying to defraud a business or something along those lines, not necessarily at the FEC and things that you're discussing.
No, it can't be. This was a federal presidential election. The allegation here, in some Twilight Zone sort of scenario, is that he settled the civil case 6 years earlier, something that happens, by the way, all the time. A civil case was settled with confidentiality agreements between a lawyer that was representing him and a lawyer representing the Stormy Daniels. Trump didn't even sign that settlement agreement, so they signed it. The lawyer financed it, subsequently gave him a host of invoices for legal services over the course of a year. They were recorded, but understand, here's the key distinction, Dana. They were recorded in their entries. They were never filed anywhere. They were never filed with the IRS. They never took a tax deduction, and they were never filed with the FEC because they weren't required to. This was a personal expenditure, not a campaign expenditure. Had it been a campaign expenditure, he would have used campaign funds, and then, of course, we'd be talking about here today the outrage that Donald Trump used campaign funds for personal expenditure.
Right.
They'd be baying for his scalp. It's a completely upside down world. So he's damned if he did and damned if he didn't. So those are misdemeanors, by the way, the record entries, which don't exist. They're not false entries, but assuming they were, they're misdemeanors way beyond the statute of limitations. So they had to cobble them together to try and get a felony.
I'm going to speak to Michael Cohen's attorney next. He says that there is actual evidence that your client, the former president, participated in falsifying business records. Have you seen any such evidence?
I know there's no such evidence. I mean, look, Michael Cohen's lawyer is spinning Michael Cohen's side. Michael Cohen is a pathological, convicted liar, perjurer. He's lied to banks, the IRS, Congress. Now he's saying he lied to the FEC when he sent that letter saying there was no campaign violation. I heard him on CNN the other day saying that when he pled guilty under oath, when he became a new man, he really wasn't guilty. He was forced to plead guilty. So that's perjury, if that's now true. He's someone who's constitutionally incapable of telling the same story the same way twice.
Michael Cohen is like not a very strong witness for sure. But it is also weird that they're like shitting on him so much. I mean, I guess it's not that weird. They're like, he's now a bad guy. You know what I mean? He's no longer on Team Trump.
So I'm not really worried about what Michael Cohen is saying on this. The records and the facts will speak for themselves.
Okay, I want to ask about the judge that we believe is going to preside over the arraignment. The former president, your client, was lashing out against him. His name is Juan Merchan. And the former president said that the judge hates him and was handpicked by the DA for this case for that reason. Are you going to ask for a different judge?
We are going to take the indictment, evaluate all our legal options, and pursue everyone most vigorously. This is a case of political persecution. Had he not been running for office right now, for the office of the presidency, which, by the way, the polls have shown since this has been announced, his numbers have gone up significantly. Had he not been running for presidency, he would not have been indicted.
Well, but
Had
let's
he been
talk
John
about
Smith,
the judge.
there's
Let's
no
talk about
scenario
the judge.
where he'd been indicted.
My question is about the
Sure.
judge. Will you
About the
ask?
judge.
Will you ask for a
What's the
different
question?
judge?
Well, I just said we have to get the indictment, and then we'll evaluate every single legal maneuver. I have no issue with this judge whatsoever.
Well, your client does. He says
has
that
a very
he's
good reputation. But my client has a right to have an issue with everything. He's been politically persecuted. Make no mistake about that, Dana. Whether you sit on the right or the left, or you're a supporter or detractor of Donald Trump, this should really bother you. This should really shake the core of what we.
Why? Like they say this all the time, where it's like, even if you hate Donald Trump, it should bother you because what? Like if you violate the fucking law, like you might actually be prosecuted. That's what it is. That's the argument. Because like, yeah, that's kind of the case for everyone who violates the law. Like I don't really, like they keep fucking hamming on this narrative. Like, oh man, if you violate the law, you're gonna get prosecuted, guys. Everybody watch out. And it's like, yeah, no shit, dude. No fucking shit. Yes. Of course, that's literally the case. That's the case for everybody. That's the case for normal people. When they violate the law, they get fucking prosecuted. Like, what do you mean this can happen to you? It already does happen. It happens every fucking day. Sometimes it happens in an unjustifiable manner, and people have no legal recourse. They don't get to make the time and the date on their arraignment. They don't get to choose to do a perp walk, even though they are given the opportunity to do a Zoom call instead. They don't have fucking cameras waiting at their, beck and call. They don't have that shit. So if you're a Norman, don't worry. If you get in trouble with the law, especially, like, you're kind of fucked. You don't have any of the opportunities that Trump has to basically, dictate the terms of his own arraignment. However, having said that, there are still plenty of fucking people who think like, oh man, well, they're going after Trump because he loves me. He defends me, which is, of course, not real. Let's be fucking real. It's not the case. And but that won't stop people from believing that regardless. And then number two, and perhaps a little bit sillier, is that they would actually get in trouble if they were to violate the law.
I believe our justice system should be about. It should not be weaponized to go after political opponents.
So you
That's
don't
what's
believe
happening
this
here.
judge
So
is
he's lashing
biased?
out because he's the victim.